In the last video, we looked at working with Print Preview. However, we only really want to use Print Preview right towards the end when we're ready to print. And a lot of our data, if it's a larger set, is not going to fit easily on the page. So very often we need to make some adjustments even before we go into Print Preview. And there are two things that can help us. The first is the page layout view. You may remember this from week 1. If you come down to your status bar, there are 3 view buttons. We're on normal at the moment, but the next one is page layout. And when I click, you can actually see how our data is going to sit on the page, but we can also edit the data in this view, so it's a lot more efficient. The other recommendation is to come up to the page layout tab. This gives us a lot of options for setting up our page. Now, looking at this data, first thing we probably want to do is change the orientation. So I'm going to click orientation and choose landscape. Already that's made a huge difference. It's just not quite fitting. But before we start trying to squish all of our columns, a very quick and easy option is margins. By default, the margins are set to normal, which are quite generous. I'm going to change it to narrow. And that has already fixed the problem. Now, I'd probably be happy with that, but those people quite perfectionist might not like the fact the margins are quite narrow on this side and a little wider on the other. So here's a well-hidden little option. Back up to margins and come down to custom margins. And here you can set your margins to any width you like. But the option I really like is the option to center on page. And we're going to center it horizontally and then say OK. And that's looking great. Let's now look at a slightly bigger worksheet. So I'm going to click into orders. And this is quite big, so we foresee some problems. Let's come back to our page layout view and click. Now, even before I scroll around, just having a little peek on my status bar on the left-hand side, you'll see page 1 of 100. I'm sure we can bring that number down a little bit. So once again, let's come up to our page layout view and let's change our orientation to landscape and let's change our margins to narrow. Well, it's looking a bit better, but if I scroll to the right, you can see it's still kind of spilling onto 3 pages and not looking great. Now, I'm never going to be able to fit all the data onto 1 page wide and still be able to read it. But I think I can probably get it to 2 pages wide. And there's a great tool to help us with this. It's called the Scale to Fit. And in the Scale to Fit, you can adjust either your height or your width, or just manually change your scale. I'm going to come up to width, click the drop down and change it to 2 pages wide. Now, if I scroll to the right, that's already looking better. There we go. The whole spreadsheet sitting nicely on 2 pages. And if I check the bottom here, page 1 of 50, we've actually halved our paper usage. One thing though that you should also check is what percentage you've scaled it down to. Anything down to about 75 is probably fine. If it's down to 23, no one's going to be able to read it. So you might need to still change. At the moment, you will also notice my scale is grayed out. That is because I've set it to always fit to 2 pages wide, even if I go and add another 25 columns. So do be a little careful leaving it like this. What I'd suggest is come back and flip this back to automatic. Now, it hasn't adjusted my scale. It's left it at 79, but if I need to manually adjust it, I can. And if I need to add more columns, they will spill onto the other sheets. So there you have some of the most useful print options and of course our page layout view. In the next video, we'll look at how to work with page breaks. Don't forget to practice these skills yourself.